everyone, it's M and K. Welcome back to our YouTube channel, and this is our Entrepreneurial Week. And this week, in this series, we're going to be discussing profits. But before we get into that, if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe, guys.
Please don't forget.
Yeah, and hit the notification button. I think it's what it's called. Yes. Yeah. So that you can get a notification when we post up on any new videos. So we thought that we should discuss profits. Why? Because all of us as entrepreneurs, or those of us who have aspirations to become entrepreneurs, we want to do so because, we want to get the extra income. We want to make a profit. So then we want to discuss what are profits in business. Yeah, so Memory and I thought this would be a nice short discussion that we could fuse into this week's series. So Memory, what are profits in a business?
Okay, so the profit is a financial gain or financial benefit from the revenue generated from any business activity.
Yeah.
This is after we take into account all the expenses and the costs or taxes that it takes to sustain the said business activity.
Yeah, so that is the definition of what profits are. So why is this important? Like we said, we're in business because we want to make a profit, but as well because some of us will get into business without really accounting for certain expenses. Like Memory said, it's the money, that you make, or the earnings that are after your, all your operational expenses and admin expenses, or your costs of goods sold. And so why it is critical to be able to analyze this is that just because you're able to make a sale, just because you're able to sell your product or you're able to sell your services, does not necessarily mean that you're making a profit. Just because you hit your sales target for that particular month or week doesn't necessarily mean that you've made a profit. What will determine whether you've actually made a profit is how well you've accounted for all your expenses that have to do with the business, right?
Yeah, that's very true. And we did a video on expenses. So I think in that video we'll go into a bit more detail exactly what we may overlook sometimes when we're doing business. Or when we have an idea, because sometimes we get an idea and we just run with it, but it may not be actually an entrepreneurial opportunity, it's just a good idea. So we do have that video that will help us to see what are the expenses that we may be overlooking. So please look out for it. It was a good video because we spoke about how you have to account for everything, whether it's your transportation, your communication costs, and so on, that are making up part of your sales. Whatever sales strategy that you have, whether it's your advertising and so on. So it's good that you look into it. And the other critical reason that we thought we should discuss this is that when you embark on a business and then you're able to determine after your analysis that you're actually not making a profit, when you look at all the sales that you've been able to make, less all the expenses that you've incurred for that business, and you find that you're either only just breaking even and not making a profit, or you're actually making a loss, then it's actually okay to drop that particular idea and look into something else. There's absolutely no shame with that. But of course we only get to these decisions if we have that information, and we only get to that information if we're interested enough to track these things that we're just now speaking about.
Yes. So when you just start the business, if you're like if you're doing it by yourself, maybe you're a small business, then it means that you're the salesperson, you're the accountant, you're the HR, because you have to pay yourself and all of that. So it means you actually have to sit down, look at what my sales were, less what were my expenses, and then you're able to make a determination whether this is a sustainable business or it's just draining you, because you don't want to go into a business that's either it just drags you along or maybe even lands you in debt and so on.
Yes, that's very true. That's definitely a situation we want to run away from, and this is a conversation that's important for small, medium, and large enterprises alike. Like now, obviously, I think we've all noticed that we are finding a couple of corporations are leaving Zambia. And I think it makes sense to speculate that one of the reasons for that is a simple analysis of, are we making a profit? Is this investment still worthwhile to have? So it's very important to have that information because it really informs important business decisions. And so now that we talk about all of this, the bigger question as well is, what profit margin do we need in order for our business to survive? I feel like we're caught up, we're mixed in that area.
Yeah, that's very true actually. That's very true because like you've already said, with like different businesses will come different margins. You can't expect to make the exact same margin that another person is making, even if they're in well, when you carry out a benchmark, you might find that the acceptable range would be this, but you can't expect that you make the exact same margin as another business just because of the different facts and circumstances that are affecting your business. Yeah.
But okay, what do you think? Because I feel like, as a consumer, right?
Yeah.
I have definitely encountered businesses that want to make 75% profit margin.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I find that that's very common when we are looking at smaller businesses, especially when you're starting out. Sometimes, you might be nudged towards wanting to, maximize as much as you possibly can on your particular business. So that means that you charge, your abnormal profits. You want to earn abnormal profits. So maybe you want to make like a 50% to 100% margin on your sales. That is not sustainable for different reasons. First of all, how are you able to make 100% or 50% profit? Is that what likely occurs in like your business, your industry, your business space? Is that what is common? Or is there some other reason? Like, as an example, well, let's take a very simple example. Let's say you're selling products, maybe you're selling clothes and so on. What's important is for you to evaluate the value of those clothes and put what is a reasonable markup on those value on the value of your clothes, as an example. The trouble with maybe exaggerating your profit margin and selling maybe at a higher price than you would ideally sell is, and I think that in this particular example that I gave, I think for me it speaks to values in a business which are very cool. Because one of the things that you find is that whatever business that is established, in whatever industry, they'll lay out what their mission is, their mission statement, and they'll lay out what their value is. And even when we're starting out as small businesses, we want to be aware of setting what our values are, because that is what is going to help us. That can completely change your trajectory of, your business growth and so on, because then you abide by certain values. As an example, you don't want to compromise on your quality just because you want to maximize your profit. So then you might find that you fail to price your particular product or good at a proper margin because you want to exaggerate the margin on that particular product or service, and a margin that maybe is not even, does not equal the value that you're going to deliver. So that really can assassinate your business reputation, because your goal is to retain customers. And if you're not returning customers, then you have a problem. So, and like we've already said, maybe smaller businesses, because we are eager, to grow, but in business, you have to be patient.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
So we always want to establish best practices, even when we're smaller.
Exactly.
Because you don't just suddenly become a large enterprise and you have, best practices. That is something you have to constantly train yourself over, train every new employee over, train everybody over. So you acquire it over time, and it's something you implement when you're still very small. And to touch on that point, a return customer, I think we've heard this said a lot of times, a return customer is very important. A return customer is assured income, it's assured referral. So you always want to retain your customers. But true to the fact about us, our smaller businesses, you would find that you had that one customer that just never came back. I probably am that customer for some businesses because, I'm very particular. I've become very particular as a consumer about how I do businesses, because maybe you overpriced something.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't have cost that much. We have different consumers in the market. Okay? And then even as people have got different preferences. Okay. She may not mind spending top dollar on what she values. I may not mind spending top dollar on what I value, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we do compromise and we say, okay, fine, if you say this is X amount of money, the value must be X, right?
Yeah.
And so we attach the value to the price. Then you find that maybe you over exaggerated it. And when I got the product, for me, it didn't feel like what I paid for is the value that I've gotten. I want return as a customer.
Yeah.
And that's it. You've lost me.
True.
So when we're planning our businesses, we need to plan for the future. It's not just about this consignment that I have, I must sell it now, it must go, I must make a profit. That's not sustainable thinking. We're not then building our business for the future.
I agree. We want to be forward thinking. We want to realize that, you know, with every step of the way, with every product that we're selling, with every, you know, every month we're forward thinking. We're thinking about what this will do for, you know, our next month or next year or next 2 years, and not in it for a quick sell or, you know, make a winning out of it. And I think that's very key.
Yeah, that's very important. So then we can say that, you know, how we look at our margins definitely affects the reputation that we have in the market to the consumer and also to our competitors.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've heard it before, like you'd go and buy a product at a certain place and they'll definitely point out that other business and says, that place is expensive.
Yeah.
But they don't have the right quality stuff. So your competitors are always watching you, in as much as your consumers are always assessing the value that you bring to the market and exactly how you do your business.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I think we will definitely do a video about speaking more when you're doing your marketing, how you sell the value and not really focus on the price. But for us, why this is important, in as much as it's important to really sell the value that your product, your services do bring to your consumer, it's also important that how you price these values is not, you know, it's not exaggerated. It's not, you're not ripping off anyone, because those are not practices that will sustain your business. But you should look out for a video where we discuss, you know, your marketing strategies, how you ensure that you don't focus on the price at which you price your products, but the value, especially when you yourself have understood what the value of your product is.
Very true. So profit is a very important thing, but we really do want to look at those margins.
Yes.
Who's bearing the burden?
Yes.
Is it the consumer more than we are? Do we really need to make 50% profit? Is it necessary? So I want to get into that.
And it's also important to have your projections. And for smaller businesses, sometimes, you know, we may think that these kinds of projections are only for bigger businesses. But even at the start, you know, when you draw out your business plan, which is another video I think that we'll do where we just discuss why it's important to have a business plan, but you need to have projections. And how projections work is that you have to take into consideration all the possible hurdles that you could possibly face in the business, what your opportunities are, what are your strengths, what are the threats, all of those things put together. SWOT analysis, I think, is what it's called. All those things put together, and every month you want to see how you're doing with your margins, so that you're able to assess your business and how well it's doing and how it's growing, because that is actually what you present to investors. Because even for a smaller business, you could go out there and get investors, and your investors might be your family members, it might be your friends, or it might be your workmates. So projections of how you've been doing over time can actually help you get investors or get a loan from the bank. So those kinds of analysis, very key.
Yes, thank you so much for that. That is very important.
Yeah. So
do keep looking out for those. And I think in conclusion, it's also important to note that different businesses have different profit margins. Yeah. So I think maybe that will just be a sign of point real quick.
Yeah.
So it may be even in the same line of business, we will have different profit margins because we have different suppliers, we source our goods from different places, we're in different locations. So we're not incurring the same costs as we are doing our business, and that's perfectly normal. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
So on that note, we will end this week's conversation on profits in our Entrepreneurial Week. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, please leave us a comment. We love to engage in these conversations with people that, are interested in these kinds of conversations, and we like to engage. And see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.